Hello, I'm Lebu Tiseko. Welcome to Focus on Africa, our top stories. The peace treaty for the CAR is signed, but after the failure of so many past deals, what's different this time? Is South Africa running out of gold to mine? Some experts say it is. We'll be looking at solutions. The women keeping an ancient tradition alive in Ivory Coast, but modernity could mean the end to this custom. Also in the programme, continuing the legacy of Komla Dumont.
I am Peter Okwocha, live in Lagos, Nigeria, where the search for the 2019 BBC Komla Dumont Award winner has begun.
And in sport, allegations of match fixing in Kenyan football. Will bring you the details. Hello, great to have you with us here on Focus on Africa on BBC World News. We start with some welcome news for the Central African Republic. The government and rebel groups have signed a preliminary peace accord. Now, it's hoped that it will end years of fighting, which has killed thousands of people. The agreement was reached at talks in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, this weekend, and that's also where the signing took place. It's being seen as a huge step forward for peace in the region. Let's take a quick look at how we got here. In 2013, Muslims from the Seleka rebel group took power in the mainly Christian country. A band of mostly Christian militias called the Anti-Balaka then rose up to counter the Seleka. More than 1 million people have been displaced. Many have had to leave the country searching for safety. Well, now a peace deal between 14 armed groups and the government's been signed, but other deals have been agreed in the past and also have failed. Well, let's go live to our Africa security correspondent, Tommy Oladipo. He's in Nairobi. Tommy, this is the 8th deal in the past 6 years. What is different this time?
Well, part of what is different will be seen if this deal holds. But so far, we've not seen the details of the agreement have not been made public. But we do know that in the past few weeks and months, the violence has been increasing around the country, and that's put increasing pressure on the government of President Faustin Touadera to listen to these armed groups, to sit down with them. But I think also in appeasing these groups, they would have put in a lot of demands. In particular, well, we heard just a fortnight ago they wanted to be included in the government. So possibly they might have got some kind of assurance of that.
Tommy, tell us about this issue of amnesty. I understand it was a big sticking point.
Yes, indeed. Just a fortnight ago, these groups, the talks actually nearly collapsed. These groups had called for an amnesty. They'd called for immunity from prosecution. And this goes back to May 2015. That happened. They called for that in the so-called Bangui Forum, and the government rejected that. And so coming again to this, because they rejected, they threatened to step away from the talks just a fortnight ago, I think they would have got some kind of assurance of some level of immunity after these talks.
I know that there's still a lot of questions. We don't know exactly what's been agreed, but is the feeling that if they got that amnesty, that may give them a stake in the process and therefore kind of prevent the falling apart of the deal as we've seen in the past?
Yes, indeed. I mean, they have actually spoken about that if they get an amnesty, then this will encourage them to lay down their arms. But of course, there is the threat of the ICC that's looming over them, the International Criminal Court. That prosecution threat, it has been there. We've seen some of the anti-Balaka leaders who have been prosecuted or who are facing prosecution. And so a lot of these other rebels will be hoping that maybe they can get some kind of legitimacy through this peace agreement that will keep them away from getting prosecuted.
This particular conflict has been going on for more than 6 years now, but the CAR does have this history of instability, of conflict. Just tell us why that is and also what it means for the region.
Well, I think one major sticking point here is the presence of minerals, the richness of the CAR's minerals and uranium, which are very useful to some of these rebel groups and also to other countries. And so as long as those minerals are there and there's the demand, the fighting to control these territories, then the fighting continues on. But also we've seen countries like Russia come in. Russia has been a major player in investment, but also in these peace talks. And so Russia would want to see some peace, and that's why they're pushing for an end to the conflict. And we've seen the official statistics coming in saying about 2.4 million people, civilians of the CAR, who are in need of humanitarian assistance. So that shows just how great or how grave this fighting has been for the country. And of course, a lot of those people also spilling out to neighboring countries as refugees.
Yeah, Tommy, I think a lot of people will be hoping that this peace holds. Thanks so much, Tommy. Now, we all know Nigeria is a major player on the continent. It's the most populous country and it's got the largest economy. So you can imagine the result of upcoming elections is a pretty big deal for its neighbours. Business people in Ghana are already making plans to try and minimise any possible disruption, as Thomas Nadi reports.
Nigeria is Africa's largest economy with a lot of resources and potential for growth. As a result, it is one of Ghana's major trading partners in West Africa. And so many here will be watching with keen interest for the outcome of the elections.
We buy our products from Nigeria, so we are very concerned about the election there. We are praying that all goes well and things remain peaceful so that we can continue doing our business.
It's not just goods that cross or flow between these two neighboring countries. Nigeria supplies gas to Ghana through the West African gas pipeline. The country also plays a major role in finances and investment in Ghana as several Nigerian banks operate across the country.
We have a lot in common, historically. A lot of our compatriots are in Nigeria, and we have a large Nigerian population in Ghana. And so it must be of concern to us when elections are ongoing there. Basically, we trade with Nigeria, I think, a lot, more than any other country in the West African sub-region. That if anything untoward happens in Nigerian elections, mars everything, including our quest for integration in West Africa.
So what do you think is the biggest threat to the Nigerian elections?
The biggest threat to Nigerian election is corruption. It is because of the corruption that Boko Haram is Boko Haram at all.
There are also concerns on the streets of Accra.
We bring a lot of goods from Nigeria to sell in Ghana. What we are hoping for is a peaceful election in Nigeria because we are investing a lot of money in our business. If anything bad happens, it will definitely affect us.
Many Nigerians come here as economic migrants, and if the election over there is peaceful, maybe they can return home.
Shehu Sani hopes for a peaceful election, but says he's not taking any risk and has planned ahead. He's imported enough goods to last well after the election. Thomas Nadi, BBC News, Accra.
All right, let's have a quick look at other stories making headlines across Africa and the rest of the world. A planned strike by teachers in Zimbabwe has had mixed results, with some reporting for duty. In schools near central Harare, most teachers seem to have turned up for work, but some were not conducting lessons. It was a different story in the opposition stronghold of Bulawayo, where many were in support of the strike against poor wages and the rising cost of living. In Egypt, authorities are reported to have arrested more than 70 people allegedly involved in smuggling migrants to Europe and North America. Those detained were from 4 gangs operating in various parts of Egypt. They're accused of providing migrants with fake documents, including bank statements, university degrees, and paperwork suggesting that they'd been persecuted in their home countries. The army in Burkina Faso says that it's killed almost 150 suspected armed militants. It's in retaliation for what was described as a terrorist attack in which 14 civilians died over the weekend. Armed forces are said to have carried out land and air raids in the north of the country at the border with Mali. Now, 2 things I've learned today: just how much gold South Africa used to produce and how quickly it might be running out. So can anything be done to revive what used to be a thriving industry? Rumani Mkiza has been finding out.
Johannesburg. In Zulu, it's Egoli, the city of gold. And this city was built on the back of gold mining. It's an industry that has formed the backbone of the South African economy for over 100 years. And the mines surrounding this city have produced half of the gold ever mined on Earth. However, the once world leader in gold production now languishes in 8th place. And according to some experts, the gold might be running out. To put matters into perspective, in 1970, South Africa produced 1,000 tons of gold. Last year, it only managed 145 tons. In its heyday, the industry employed over 300,000 workers, and now the figure is just over 100,000 and shrinking.
Well, look, it's a tough industry, you know. I mean, a lot of our gold mines are very, very old and very, very deep. I mean, we've got the deepest mine in the world here. Yeah, and obviously with mining, you know, the deeper you go and the further you get away from your infrastructure, the harder it gets.
The National Union of Mine Workers represents over 300,000 workers in various mining industries, and the decline of the gold sector is having a direct bearing on the union and its members.
Companies are now rich out of the money and the sweat and the blood of workers in South Africa, which have actually mobilized the resources for them. Then they go out, left the workers rotting in South Africa. So that is the main cause of why gold mining in South Africa is deteriorating. There's no new projects.
With no new major investments in decades, and with some of the deepest mines in the world, the industry is finding it increasingly expensive to extract the precious metal from the ground.
Our deepest mines are sitting at about 4 kilometers depth. So it's pretty capital intensive operations, but there's still a lot of gold that can be mined economically.
The depths of South Africa's gold mines means there's only so far humans can go. However, the trade unions will have to be brought on board due to fears that automation will create further job losses. But technology may be the only answer. Sibanye Gold has run tests using small tunnel drilling robots, and Anglo Gold Ashanti is using new automated tunnel boring drills. And for the industry to survive, more companies will have to embrace new methods of digging the precious metal from the ground. Vumani Mkhize, BBC News, Johannesburg.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Lebu Diseko. Still to come in sport, we speak to the president of the Nigerian Football Federation, Amaju Pinnick, about the African Cup of Nations. I'm Lebu Diseko. The top story this hour. A peace deal is signed by the warring parties in the conflict in the CAR with the aim of ending more than 6 years of violence that displaced millions of people. Now, traditional healers play an important role in the lives of many people across the continent. And in Ivory Coast, high priestesses known as Kenyans seen as so powerful that kings won't even take their thrones without their say-so. But their traditions could be under threat, as Daya Youssef reports.
Drumming for the gods. The Akan community, which is found in eastern Ivory Coast and parts of Ghana, believe they can speak to a higher power seeking help to cure a wide range of diseases from cancer and epilepsy to male impotence. But not everyone can do it. This is the job for Kenyans. High priestesses selected and specially trained for this craft, which is seen as the link between the people and their gods. They are credited with the power to cast spells and predict the future, but these Kenyans are finding it hard to predict their own fate, and there are fears that modern society is increasingly abandoning this tradition.
Donc, effectivement, si on ne prend garde.
Indeed, if we are not careful, this part of our society, this culture of our society is in danger of disappearing.
The community holds these Kenyans in such high regard that no local king or tribal chief can be enthroned without their intervention. So one volunteer stepped up to preserve this tradition and opened a school. But even for her, the burden is becoming too heavy to bear.
I don't see anything special about saying that it gives me the same feeling to continue what I'm doing. Because they always say, we will help you, we will help you. But until now, since 1992, until today, no one has come to my aid. That's why I currently want to stop, because sometimes I receive more than 22 students. They are my responsibility.
Training at the school takes 3 years, and the graduates are offered positions in their local villages or set up private practices. Such beliefs are common in many parts of Africa, though slowly fading into history books. But Kenyans say they face an even bigger threat, as criticism from evangelical churches is becoming increasingly insistent.
Nowadays, spirits continue to be incarnated in young children. If you refuse to submit to it, they drive you crazy. If you obey them, you heal. The Kenyans cannot disappear.
Clearly, the lines have been drawn as the Akan community battles to keep tradition alive in the wake of modern civilization. But they also understand they need to find a common step to be in harmony with the changing world. Dayo Yusuf, BBC.
You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. Time now for the sport with Mimi.
Thank you very much, Lebu. Now, FIFA wants a full investigation into allegations that several Kenyan internationals were fixed, including a 2010 World Cup qualifier against Tunisia. The claim has come to light after publication of a FIFA report into former Kenya international George Owino, who has denied any wrongdoing. Now, BBC Sport Africa Piers Edwards has more on the story.
Yes, Mimi, FIFA says that it wants several Kenya internationals that were played between 2009 and 2011 to be submitted for further investigation, all for the possibility of match fixing. Now, this follows a preliminary investigation by football's world governing body into the roles played by a former Kenya international, George Owino, as you mentioned, and a convicted match fixer, Raj Perumal. The 10-page FIFA report says that it has prima facie evidence that the pair conspired to manipulate and influence the result of several international football matches, and these include a 2010 World Cup qualifier, which was played in 2009 between Kenya and Tunisia, which Tunisia won 1-0. Now, this report, which was dated back in September, that was when it was written, and which has been seen by the BBC, has only just come to light. Owino, who played for Kenya between 2008 and 2015, has denied any wrongdoing, but the Singaporean Perumal has yet to publicly comment. In the meantime, FIFA says it wants a full and further investigation, which it shall do internally if it goes ahead. Mimi.
Thank you very much, Piers, for that. We'll have more on Piers later on in the show. Now, the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations continued today in Niger with Group A matches. South Africa v Nigeria has kicked off and is currently taking place. Later today, Burundi will be taking on host Niger. The top 4 teams qualify for the 2019 FIFA Under-20 World Cup in Poland. If Nigeria make it 2 wins out of 2 today, they will have booked themselves a place. More African transfers this February. Senegal international goalkeeper Edouard Mendy is happy to have extended his Reims contract by a further 2 years. The new deal keeps the 26-year-old with the promoted French Ligue 1 club until summer 2022. Now, this summer, Egypt will be hosting the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations, but there have been concerns in some quarters about security in the country following a terror attack last December. Plus, Egypt has largely banned football fans from attending matches in stadiums since 2012. Nigeria Football Federation President and Confederation of African Football First Vice President Amaju Pinnick recently told BBC's Piers Edwards that he has no concerns.
Challenges that possibly people talk about security they're everywhere. There's no city in this world that do not have black spots. Security challenges are always tackled, in a way where you don't need to divulge it into the public. Club football is different from national football. Club football has a lot of fanaticism. They are truly, really excited about it, and they are ready to welcome the rest of Africa and the world.
Has President Ahmad been acting unilaterally? That's what the Ivory Coast Federation said when they took their complaint to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, or has he been acting in accordance with the Executive Committee, unlike what the Ivory Coast Federation said?
Everything that I've told you now, we exhaustively discussed. But maybe at the appropriate time, we did not put it down to say, yeah, this is it. But I can tell you emphatically, we discussed practically everything. And by God's grace, and we're happy to see that by now everything has been resolved.
Is Ahmad, you believe, running a united or divided CAF, given all that's been going on in recent months in the organisation?
There are some things that we must not agree about every other issue. It doesn't mean that your opinion is not important. So, but when people start seeing things like that, and they talk to friends, people will not feel that we are divided. To me, I don't think there's any major division. Well, trust me, we're doing everything in trying to reduce these cracks. We're doing everything. Ahmad himself is not perfect as a human being. I'm not perfect, we are not perfect, but we always try to look at what is most elemental, is development of football in Africa.
President of the Nigerian Football Federation, Amaju Pinnick, speaking there. That's all the sports. Back to you, Lebu.
Thanks, Mimi. Now, are you an upcoming African journalist with a flair for telling stories and a love of the African continent? Well, the BBC could be looking for you. It is the 5th year of the BBC World News Komla Dumont Award, set up in memory of our friend and colleague Komla, who presented this show. The launch has taken place in Lagos, and our very own Peter Okoche is there. Peter, this award really is about keeping Komla's legacy alive, isn't it?
Absolutely, Lebu. You and I know, and every other person who met Komla during his professional career knew how passionate he was about telling the African story and telling it in its entirety. He was a brilliant journalist who loved the continent and wanted people to see not only the bad side that foreign media and local journalists have been putting out to the rest of the world for a long, long time, but also that this was a continent in motion, a continent that was rising, a continent that was doing great things, where young people were achieving great things. And unfortunately, this wonderful career that brought him all the way from the back of a motorbike in Accra when he was a traffic correspondent to become a lead presenter on BBC World News was cut short about 5 years ago. And the BBC has started this award to continue that legacy and encourage young journalists.
Peter, what actually happened today? Talk us through that.
So basically, since Komla's demise, every year the BBC has been searching for one young journalist on the continent who is passionate about telling the African story, passionate about the African narrative, who will win an award and then come to the BBC and spend 3 months working with us there at New Broadcasting House in London. So today we launched the search for the 2019 winner, and it was a well-attended event. We had students of the University of Lagos here, very intelligent students who are also passionate about their country, Nigeria. We had public relations people, and I'm really glad to say that we also had Komla's father, Professor Dumont. He was here alongside Komla's elder sister, Mawena, who have been helping the BBC to keep Komla's legacy alive. So basically, we explained to people how they could enter for this award, what they needed to do, and if they won, what they would get in return.
Oh, Peter, it's great to see the pictures there of Komla's father and his sister. Also, the previous winners, Didi, Nancy there as well. Just briefly, how do people apply? How long have they got?
Well, it's very easy. All they have to do is go to the BBC Komla Dumont Award website. It sits along in the BBC website. Go there and then fill in the application. You have to send a video clip of yourself. You've got till the 26th of March to apply for this award. It's a great award for any budding journalist who resides on the continent. Lebu.
All right, thank you, Peter. What better way to end this show with remembering the legacy of Komla Dumont? Get involved with the conversation, #Komla Dumont Award.